Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to speak here today at the GreenTech Festival. And I'm here to convince you that green transport, especially freight trains, will make a big difference in the future. They have the potential to make us move the right direction towards a green future and a growing sustainable economy. I'm also here because I believe we need an open debate about how goods are transported. We witnessed a historic court ruling a couple of weeks ago. I hope you all have recognized this. The German Constitutional Court ruled that by the end of the next year, the German government needs to draw up clearer reduction targets for greenhouse gas emissions for the period after 2030. Germany will be the country with the most ambitious goals, and the transport sector will be key to achieve them. I've been working in the transport business for over 25 years by now. Before joining Deutsche Bahn, I worked as the chairwoman of the BVG, the main public transport system here in Berlin and one of the biggest in whole Europe. All the yellow things you see here in Berlin, which move, belong to the BVG. The buses, the trains, everything which is yellow. But when we think about how to transport, when we think about how transport can save CO2, we think about riding a bike instead of taking the car. Or we think about taking the train instead of taking the car. And when we think about green technology, we often think about how to transform city centers to make them green and smart. These things are, of course, very important. However, these things are only half of the story. Only half of this story. I'm going to tell you why. These things focus on passenger transport only. My dear colleague for the passenger transport is also in this auditorium. Passenger transport is responsible for approximately 60% of the emissions in Germany. But what about the other 40%? Have you ever thought about these other 40%? They are the other side of this story. The side that we don't think about, but which is equally important if we really want to change the situation. Everything that surrounds us must be transported. Maybe the chairs you are sitting on are transported from China. Perhaps the jacket I'm wearing is transported from Italy. Almost half of the CO2 emissions are caused by transport. Everything we need for our daily life is transported. Food, furniture, but also wood for construction or chemicals for the pharmaceutical industry. These chemicals have been very important during the pandemic, by the way, and they have been transported by rail. Just to underline this. But I would like to give you some figures. That's why I have the cards with me, because the figures are on these cards. In order to meet our current targets, and perhaps we will have more ambitious targets very soon, we have to reduce emissions in the transport sector by more than 40%, from 164 million of CO2 to 95 millions of CO2 in 2030. And we have an immediate solution, the rail. So why can rail freight be an immediate solution for this problem? Trucks on our roads, which today transport around 70% of all our goods, emit 30 million of tons of CO2. And rail freight transports 18% of our goods, but emits only 0.8%. 0.8%. Even if we transport 18% of the goods. You see this relationship. Perhaps this was too many numbers, but I can make it very, very simple. Shifting the transport of goods from road to rail automatically saves 80 up to 100% of CO2. Just the switch from road to rail saves 80 up to 100%. The company I work for, the Deutsche Bahn Cargo, is Europe's biggest rail freight operator. We have access to what I call the biggest green network in Europe. We have access to 35,000 kilometers of tracks in Germany. Within 1 or 2 days, we can transport everything through whole Europe. And in 12 days, I transport everything from Middle China to Germany. You might not have thought of rail freight in the past. However, rail freight is one of the solutions which is already there. It is a solution which is so available, which is so fast and so easy. Rail freight enables us to save CO2 on a very large scale. What do we need to make these things happen? Not so much. First, we consumers should understand that our behavior makes a difference. We should be interested in the fact how the things we consume are transported. Second, policymakers are responsible for the framework. And the framework which lead both us consumers but also corporate emitters to make the right choices. And the right choices must be green choices. And third, corporate emitters should be able to make clever economic choices. And the framework is responsible that the clever economic choice is a green choice. So choosing green must be an economically smart decision. This is very important. These days, we have a lot of discussions on how and whether we can combine sustainability and protect our climate and still ensure economic growth in this country. When we opt to transport our goods by rail, we don't have to choose. When we change to rail, we don't have to choose. Rail freight allows to combine the best of these two worlds. We can have sustainability and growth and comfort. Using rail freight is not a vision. It's not the future. It's not a new technology that needs to be built up from scratch. It's a technology we already have, we already use. But we can choose to use this old but good technology more. So we have to choose this technology. And the only thing we need to do is to use it. It's very, very simple. And when we do that, rail freight will make us move the right way towards a green, towards a sustainable future. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Janine Stuchel, and I'm the Vice President of Global Marketing of PDV Group. And I'm really excited to be part of this year's GreenTech Festival and to talk about innovative solutions for a smarter and greener future. A topic which moves me a lot personally as well. Not only because I'm a passionate biker, hiker, and surfer myself, and eager to protect the beauty of our Earth and nature, but also because the current climate situation drastically shows the urgency to act right now, especially in our cities. Because truth is, the present in our cities is rather grey than green. Air pollution affects all areas of the world, but urban areas in particular. Already, more than 50% of the world's population is living in cities, increasing constantly. Today, cities alone produce more than 70% of all CO2 emissions, especially in the areas of building, industry, and transportation. Due to our rising population and purchasing behavior, road transport emissions have strongly increased over the past decade. They comprise already more than 20% of all human-made emissions. And with an ever-growing mobility demand, these transport-related emissions are expected to grow by 2/3 by 2050. The impact is huge. According to the World Health Organization, 7 million premature deaths are linked to the effects of air pollution. That's 1 on 8 deaths globally. Moreover, air pollution accounts for 5 trillion losses of economic output each year. So the urgency to tackle this problem is clear. What can we do to take action? How can we reshape grey, congested and polluted cities and turning them into green, livable and safe places to live and move again? Places that focus on humans and on the different purposes of the people that live in it, with all their diverse needs and abilities. This is where data and technology can help. Because, of course, you cannot just go and delete a car lane or add a new mobility service to a given infrastructure without causing chaos. Every city has its own mobility and population pattern and must therefore be analyzed individually, regardless of whether it's a large city or a rural community. The key is to always take the actual on-site condition into account. Here, digital twins of cities can help. They're basically like a virtual playground, a digital model where you can realistically simulate a city's current and future mobility situation and run different what-if scenarios. To have a comprehensive overviews, those digital models are filled with profound data. In this example, you can see the traffic and air pollution hotspots in London, complemented with real-time emission data from our partner Bosch. With data-driven models like this, you can realistically test and validate effects of possible measures in a virtual environment and derive concrete actions to make hotspots like this more sustainable and efficient by new mobility solutions. Let me give you some concrete examples. Take cycling. It has a significant importance for a sustainable mobility ecosystem. Especially fostered by the current pandemic, we experience a real bike boom and an increasing request of people for bicycle-friendly cities. With a great effect. In Bogota, for example, there's a new bicycle highway project which potentially allows more than 50,000 daily bicycle trips, also potentially avoiding more than 200,000 of greenhouse gas emissions. In this slide, you can see the usage of Nextbike in Berlin over a day. Simulations like this help to understand where most people use and need bikes and how to combine it with new lanes or public transport possibilities. Data like this can then be added to a virtual model in order to run potential analysis. Because in order to create the most efficient bike room, the best thing is you match the mobility infrastructure with different purposes. Connecting, for example, the way to school, work, and shopping. This helps to make initiatives like pop-up bike lanes or bicycle highways a permanent and efficient part of a city. Usage and network analysis like this are also helpful in the context of e-mobility. Many cities have decided to ban diesel and petrol cars from the city centers. So this brings new challenges for the infrastructure. In Scotland, for example, we are doing a project together with Scottish Power in order to analyze the effect of e-mobility on the network and also allocate where charging points are needed. Of course, when you want to have a broad effect on sustainability, you must look at the full picture. So it's not only about how people move, but also how goods are moved and delivered to people every day. The rise of e-commerce also leads to an increasing in delivery traffic, especially in cities in the last mile. It's obvious that every unnecessary kilometer driven here is a saving in emissions. That is why we are working with logistics companies worldwide, using data and technology to optimize deliveries by reducing routes driven and vehicles used. This is saving up to 40,000 tons of CO2 emissions every day, which is actually 40 million tons every year. So as we can see from these examples, tackling climate change needs multiple measures. We all have a part to play here, but cities in particular. Many cities have started to flip the script on climate change already by using smart technology and data, proving to be part of the solution and not just the problem, implementing and orchestrating new solutions that it needs for a more sustainable mobility mix. Because the technology is rather there. Now we need to turn data into action. And as change derives from collaboration, we must all work together here. Government and industry, politics and technology. Only a smart interaction of data, multiple stakeholders, and actions can lead to a mobility mix that is not only sustainable, but also equitable, focused on the diverse needs of people worldwide. So it depends on us and the choices that we make this decade. Now is the time to go smarter and faster towards a future where we can meet our transportation needs and have people-friendly streets at the same time. So let's use the chances of technology-driven mobility. And let's move towards a more greener and cleaner future together. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Lukas. I'm 33 years old. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Hampf. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a graduate of Nikutta. I'm a graduate of Sigrid. I'm a gradu
I represent MAN Truck and Bus here at the GreenTech. So I'm the truck guy at GreenTech, and I will tell you that this is clearly not a contradiction. I'm responsible for the engineering of the powertrains and also the cabs and chassis for these trucks and buses which we bring on the road. And we are clearly committed to make a zero-emission future possible. And as an engineer, also trained to make that possible. Our three main challenges, certainly, is zero-emission vehicles, zero-emission transportation. We already have legislation in the plan to reduce CO2 very significantly, and we need to bring zero-emission vehicles in the market in order to achieve these legislation steps. The second topic, and we just heard it before, there is a lot of potential in the digitization with 100% uptime, 100% efficiency in the transportation, in the logistics. And the third topic, certainly automation. Automation can, on the one hand, certainly improve the business case of transportation and also makes it possible to invest in new technologies. But it also can increase the efficiency of the transportation, which in addition then also improves CO2 emissions. You can see here the trend over the years. In order to evaluate CO2 reduction, most countries are using, or most plants are using, mid of the 90s as the reference point. And what you can see on that graph is that up to 2020, we have already reduced CO2 emission by the pressure to make our vehicles more efficient by 40%. And now we are accelerating. We are accelerating in this decade. We are accelerating to 3% per year with 15% additional reduction in 2025 and 30% until the end of this decade. And then certainly approaching a zero-emission future with our vehicles. What are the most promising alternatives? And what you see on that graph here is that in the lifespan of a truck, the largest range is the consumption of the truck. So if we defossil our transportation by using other measures, which are shown here, we have the biggest lever in hand. Battery electric trucks, definitely something, and I will show you afterwards, definitely something which we have in the pipeline, which we have already on the road, and also hydrogen applications, certainly both based on green electricity. Those are the ones who will make in our lives, in the lifespan of our vehicles, will make the biggest lever of more than 60% in CO2 reduction. And as I said, it's definitely trucks, buses, zero-emission vehicles is absolutely not a contradiction. We have them on the road already. We have buses on the road. We have distribution trucks on the road in different sizes. And we make huge progress from 100 kilowatt hours, 220 kilowatt hours batteries, 480, 640 kilowatt hours. Very big ranges in order to support the business case of our customers. Just consider, we just published about 2 or 3 weeks ago a 24-hour drive of an inner city electric bus achieving 500 kilometers. So we are able, with zero-emission vehicles, to tackle the business cases and also to tackle the operations of our customers and of the users of the trucks. And we have more in the pipeline. We bring regional distribution vehicles on the market with very significant ranges and also long-haul vehicles. And we will also bring hydrogen vehicles in the second half of the decade with fuel cells as an addition to that, to the battery electric in the market. So to have a truck as part of a transportation system is no contradiction to be zero emission and CO2 free. But what we need for that is a clear and fast ramp up of charging infrastructure. When you look at the operation of a truck today with a driver, we have 4.5 hours legislated limit, 4.5 hours of driving and 45 minutes of break, and then another 4.5 hours. In order to use that most efficiently, we need to be able to charge in those 45 minutes, which also requires megawatt charging or charging infrastructure in the range of 750 kilowatts. It certainly also needs a network of charging stations, which are already built for passenger cars, but on the highways with distances in the range of 150 kilometers, we also need to have this infrastructure available in order to charge trucks in these 45 minutes. And not only is it the operation of the truck today, it's also an electric truck gives additional potential to extend the business together with our customers. And it shows already with those zero-emission vehicles which we have in the market, our customers are also getting very creative in extending their business model towards zero emissions. It is certainly infrastructure in charging, which would be one range, but then also extending the business in planning transportation and orienting this transportation to the appropriate charging infrastructures. And then financing, for example, that we are providing transport solutions, including also the providing electrical infrastructure. And a lot of changes beyond that, certainly second life of batteries, and also battery recycling, which certainly in the group we are intensively working on. So clearly, zero emissions, zero CO2 and transportation of goods and people is not a contradiction, and we're working on that. And we're committed to that. We are committed to achieve the Paris Agreement with the steps which I have described. But we need an infrastructure for that. We need the appropriate infrastructure to have the charging points available. And certainly the appropriate incentives in order to prioritize, in order to get the right total cost of ownership to our customers, which are then transporting goods with zero emissions. And we are facing that challenge certainly all together. As I said, I'm an engineer. I'm working on making that happen together with my colleagues. But we need everybody. We need everybody pulling here together in order to provide an ecosystem so that we can live in a zero-emission environment. And with that, thank you very much.
Cities are living things. They evolve, and like people, they have different personalities. They follow their own systems, and they all move, connect, and challenge us in completely different ways. The future of mobility is not so much deciding what kind of vehicle we'll use to get from A to B, but a larger set of questions. How do these vehicles connect to each other? How do we access them? Where do we charge them? For over 4 decades now, we've been shaping the future of mobility together with some of the most inspiring companies that there are out there, both within and beyond automotive, both within and beyond the BMW group, sometimes even beyond mobility. We're working on solutions that enable movement in more efficient, exciting, and sustainable ways. We're thinking in the context of the bigger picture, and that very holistic approach allows us to design everything from small objects to complex systems and bring all that together into meaningful human experiences. Mobility is fascinating. It doesn't only affect the way we get to the future, but it defines the kind of future we're going to have.
Hello. Hi. I'm here today to talk a bit more about design. Design as a conduit for more dialogue. The job to create ambitious visions for the future, and also the need to provoke from the outside in. We are at a very significant inflection point towards collective well-being. This is a different type of discussion. This has to be a transdisciplinary discussion. What we have to try is to build better communities, go beyond sustainability towards regenerative design, and also create beautiful experiences for all. The car has changed everything. Cities got literally reprogrammed. People moved to the outside and started to commute in and commute out again. A lot of traffic with some advantages. You know, mobility cost went down, convenience, comfort, flexibility. But it also had quite a few disadvantages. You know, we spent more time in traffic, pollution, the space in cities got scarce, accidents, and I believe the list is much longer. What we and designers are also somewhat at fault. What we try to create as an answer is an ecosystem of digital applications, of digital services and interfaces. Digitalization has really changed our lives and changed mobility. And the smart city was one of these answers to it, the thing to fix it, to offer mobility to every individual, even personalized to an extent. But I would claim today that technology alone cannot be the answer, cannot be the solution. We now know that we have to work together. No single individual, no technology company, no government can solve the problem of climate change, global warming, public health, and the conservation of resources. We now know we have to do it together. We have to do it in strong partnerships. And it is very important that we shift our point of view, and this is me speaking as a designer, from a customer-centric point of view to a community-centric point of view, even to a culture-centric point of view. Sustainable leadership really starts with the tone at the top. Companies that were mentioned today that took part here in the conference, Patagonia, Apple, are leading the pack because they put sustainability at the core of their business. Great. BMW as well got recognized by their stakeholders for what they've done with Project I, the i3, the i8, years ago. But the next steps were missing. The courage and conviction to take the next steps in this very important stage of transformation were just simply not there. So now, moving the right way is the question, and it all starts with a promise. Sustainability is not what you do as an organization, it is who you are. And BMW set a good example this year by merging their annual business report with the annual sustainability value report, because we now finally understand that business and sustainability are inseparable. Moving the right way also means that you have to take a holistic approach to the effort. You know, every element what you do, what you think, how you act in as an organization is part of the effort. Every department plays a role in it, from supply chain to sourcing to administration, where and how you make the product, how you distribute it. Everything plays an important role. But you might ask yourself, what do peanuts have to do with the sustainability efforts of a car company? Let me explain. At one of BMW's battery development centers in China, BBA, the employees started to use the unused space around the factory, around the facilities, to plant peanuts. Why? They figured the climate was optimal to plant peanuts. So now the income from the crops are being used to fund local infrastructure programs. You know, big problems sometimes need to be addressed in small steps, and this is a very nice step. Design consultancies are shifting their view from an object-centric to a system-centric view. Systems are complicated and complex, and you know, everything in a system interacts with one another, influences one another. So we need to better understand how it all connects. And this means that, you know, structuring the system or trying to structure it and applying specialist knowledge doesn't really help much. It needs an empirical, a holistic, a collaborative, an agile spirit. You know, only then can we start to use technology instead of being guided by it. My point about design is that we embrace technology. We embrace complexity. And in my podcast, I've named already intention. Here I add intuition. You know, sometimes think with your heart and your gut to tackle a problem. Innovate at every possible corner. Try to go beyond what's possible today. And most important to me, inspire everyone around you. You know, try to address everyone personally, because it is all of our problem. Design plays a very important role in this entire process because we visualize and we envision what is possible. We paint the future, very much so. And you know, the positive energy and the consulting capabilities of design help clients, our clients, to turn uncertainty and also anxiety about the future into excitement. So for today, I brought 5 design patterns which give you a starting point, at least that. You know, these 5 design patterns are strongly interconnected. They work as a first foundation. You know, we have to reframe the narrative, which means good storytelling. Always think about it as a story. Enable transparency is about communication, honest, direct, clear. We have to talk that way. Providing alternatives, especially important in design. Start with a large set of ideas and don't kill any of them early in the process. Reimagining business models, think about your own organization and think outside the box. What else is it that you can do? Facilitate behavioral change, always put the user first. Think about how a new product or service can reward them in their daily life. So, last but not least, the most important part, always in design, start with a strong, bold vision. I can think, when I think of a complex ecosystem, only think about an airport. The example here, Los Angeles. Here in 1961, a designer, an artist, provided a rendering of what the future could look like. And everyone was excited about it. And everyone embraced this concept for years to come. LA today goes again through this phase of retransformation, of reprogramming, to get ready for the next wave of events like the Olympics in 2028. And I do hope there is again a designer at the start who drafts the vision. When I think of an example from Designworks, one of my favorite projects comes up, and this was Vision E3 Way. This was an elevated pedestrian and two-wheel transport line separate from the road. It literally floated above the road level, and provided safe and fun transportation. We as well went ahead with a bold vision, and I think cities today could gain to investigate all levels, also the third dimension, including air mobility. So I'll close today with the stamp of approval and another idea. We, a short while ago, introduced the idea to our parent company, BMW, which was called Rattle the Cage. It was about awarding the ideas that really provoke the organization and deliver a positive energy towards the future with a stamp of approval. So every sketch, every rendering, every digital drawing that really sticks out gets this stamp. And since we're at the GreenTech Festival here today, I'd like to just change the color of the stamp to green. Thank you.
Thank you, Holger. Thank you very much. Welcome back on stage, everybody. Holger's just organizing his stamps.
Yes, and everyone gets one.
Ah, very good. Thank you.
Green. Yes.
Great. Thanks a lot for the stamp.
Thank you.
A green stamp.
Cool, thank you.
I feel left out.
What's on? Yeah.
I have one in the back for
No
you.
worries, I'm just kidding. So, welcome back here on stage. Great and inspiring keynotes from you four here. Thank you for that. And to our audience online or here in the Kraftwerk, if you have any questions, please add them into our Slido Q&A. So if you visit with your smartphones, slido.com or slido.do, you enter 93078 and you choose main stage, and all questions you may have come directly to my tablet here. Once again, the code is 2020. Now, if you find this tablet later, it's yours. And we already have loading. Got Edge in here. No, I'm just kidding. I already have some questions, but let me actually throw one question in to Janine and Holger to start off with. Speaking about urban transportation, sustainable urban transportation, which city is a real front runner? Janine, maybe first.
Well, I think if you talk about city frontrunners, especially in the sense of sustainability, often our Scandinavian friends are named, and I think they do a great job. But I also want to particularly raise two other cities, because I think they really show that there are a variety of measures you can take. One is Paris. Of course, they have some time to go to be fully sustainable, but with their mayor, Anne Hidalgo, they really have a clear vision to be more citizen-centered again and let Paris breathe again. For example, this 15-minute approach is a really interesting approach. The idea is basically that everything which the residents need in the city center can be reached within 15 minutes of walking or bicycle distance. And of course, this means that if you live in the city center, you won't need an own car anymore. And the other example is Lisbon. They have started since quite some time to really be more citizen-centered. For example, already 90% of the residents there live within maximum of 300 meters of a frequency-running public transport system. And also already in 2017, they introduced a frequently used bike share system, with most of the bikes also being electric, so also to cover the hillier parts of the city. And they actually have one of the world's largest e-charging network, also for electric vehicles. So I think both of them show great examples that there is a great variety of measures you can also take as a city, and you just need to see what fits best to your specific mobility pattern.
Holger, what's your personal front runner in city urban mobility, sustainable mobility?
Not much to add. I would have also said the city in Scandinavia, Oslo, Stockholm, Copenhagen. But I have to go back to my current home base, Los Angeles, because this is one of the cities with one of the largest transportation problems. You know, nothing is possible in 15 minutes in Los Angeles, that's for sure. But it's a city that currently, and I've talked about it, takes a system approach to trying to solve it. They go neighborhood by neighborhood and try to establish communities, small neighborhoods like Culver City, Santa Monica, and they establish rules for each of these neighborhoods and then start to connecting them with the metro line. So they as well figured that 14 square miles is impossible to solve as a city. So they break it down and understand the elements and see how they connect.
Dr. Nikutta, please.
Yes, I want to drop in Berlin at this moment because Berlin is Germany's biggest city with nearly 4 million inhabitants, and in Berlin we have the goal to have a station for a bus, tram, or subway around of 400 kilometer for each 400 meter for each inhabitant. So, and this is not a goal. I think we have reached this in 95%. So I think for Germany, this is a real good result. And in 2030, all the public transport in Berlin will be electrified. So the tube, the tram is already electrician, but also the buses will be.
So speaking about Scandinavian countries, about Lisbon, Los Angeles, Berlin might be a secret front runner to be?
It's German's front runner. It's a German front runner. Of course, the Scandinavian cities are in a very different situation. They don't have these big cities like we have these cities like Berlin. Paris is, of course, a good example in France.
Lukas, we actually have a question for you from the audience saying which companies, actually two questions to you, which companies do you have in mind to develop and install the charging infrastructure?
They are actually consortia building at that point in time also between OEMs, which are in process of developing a network as well, but certainly that needs to be a system that needs to be also supported by the public hand in order to make that possible. So they are establishing in the meantime their initiatives running in that case.
Actually, a question that came to my mind during your keynote. You said your buses already reach ranges of 500 kilometers. Is this a desirable range, or is this like just a beginning?
No, that is definitely a desirable range. It's actually a very long range. So it is normally you would calculate in the range 250, 300 kilometers for electric buses. But it was for us, I mean, I said also, we had a short discussion in the back, that the progress we are making in the technology is so huge that it is always, we are actually surprising ourselves with the next steps. And here, this 500 kilometers was a test which we did in Munich, going really 24 hours from station to station, and that achieved 500 kilometers. But it's certainly not the layout point.
Yeah.
So how is it for trucks?
On the truck side, you would say an average customer does, on a long-haul range, does about 500 kilometers a day. But certainly we are not developing for the average customer, and also the buying decision is not done by the average. But we will be able to, both on distribution, regional distribution, and also on long haulage, we will be able to support 80% of the market or so, with battery electric vehicles. So for us it's clear, now let's bring the battery electric vehicles in the market and make them happen. And then there will be also others which are having more, let's say, more difference in daily range, or need longer range. And here hydrogen is a very good solution, and I've shown from a CO2 reduction potential it's very similar. So we have the possibilities, as I said, with zero emissions also to support the transport system which we're used today and which continues to grow.
Alternative fuels. We have a question, and I love the straight out question, so thank you very much for asking the questions. Dr. Nikutta, when will Deutsche Bahn start using alternative fuels? Now, you're already using renewable energy, and yeah, on my Bahn card it always says I'm on the road, well, on the tracks, completely well, green.
Green, yes.
Green, yes. But is there actually any chance we will see electric trains? Of course, the ICE train is electric,
Genau,
but
yes.
with completely alternative fuels.
Yeah, you have the sign 100% green electricity on your Bahn card because we use it for the ECE. So this is a really good message. But we still have, and I think this is the question, we still have older locomotives, especially in my sector, in the freight sector. We have shunting locomotives which are older, which do not have any electrification due to the fact that there is no electrified truck, of course. That's the point. And we are already using alternative fuels like biofuels and artificial fuels. For example, we have used them for the Sylt shuttle to test it, to see if it's possible to use these alternative fuels in older locomotives. The result is it is possible. And that is a good result. Of course, we have some issues to solve at the moment, like the whole infrastructure for alternative fuels. Of course, we need a huge amount of alternative fuels, which must be produced. So there are some issues to solve, but we are on the way. And yesterday, we announced our new goal that the Deutsche Bahn AG will be completely CO2-free in the year 2040. And this means that we really arrange all the topics in our company towards green.
19 years to come. That sounds like a really, really, sorry to say, German slow way of transforming. Is this what you hear from other voices as well, maybe?
No, it's a very quick way, because to be completely CO2 free, this is a real goal, because you have to change everything. And that's my business. I sell you CO2 free transports at the moment, but this is only one part. If you want to have a complete CO2 free company, then you have to rearrange everything. The heating of your offices, of your workshops, everything. And this is a
It's a big task, of course.
Hard goal.
It's an absolutely huge task. We have another question from the audience. No name, unfortunately, says political tensions and human rights cast a shadow over batteries and tech, especially from China. Sanctions would harm supply chains. What would your company do to address this issue?
Yeah,
Lukas, maybe.
Certainly. We need to address, as we are part, or I'm also part of a global company, we always need to address supplies on a worldwide basis, and also with local resources. So that is clearly part of our strategy, to be able to use resources on a global basis and also supply these technologies on a worldwide basis.
Final question to Holger. We have a couple of seconds left. Are your products and solutions designed from scratch, actually, with regards to sustainability and circularity?
I think sustainability is starting to become a very integral part of the design process. And I would definitely say that any product that can include sustainability measures and thinking right from the get-go will be the better product. I believe that sustainability as an afterthought is actually over. So we are now very comfortably starting to talk about a new idea, a new approach, from the get-go, with the inclusion of sustainability approach and also expectations, I would say. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That was really inspiring. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you for being our guest here at GreenTech Festival. Please put your hands together. Big round of applause for Janine Stochel, Dr. Sigrid Nikutta, Lukas Walter, and Holger Hampf.
Thank you.